I'm going to take you through the taco pose step by step with my fake baby. The reason that I'm using my fake baby to do this is that it's a more advanced pose and it's more complex in terms of how you set up your posing bag ready for the positioning and also how you sit the baby into this particular pose. What's important to understand is not every baby will go into this position comfortably. They're not some are not so naturally inclined to draw their feet right up underneath them. So reading the cues of the baby, whether they become stiff or, they start sort of stirring and become upset, they're going to tell you whether or not they're going to go into this pose comfortably or not. So I want to make sure that when I'm in a shoot, and if a parent requests this pose, because I don't do it in every session, but if a parent requests it, I will explain to them that not every baby will do this comfortably, and we'll just continue to move on with the photo shoot if they become unsettled. If I do have a baby that naturally draws their legs up underneath them while I'm posing them, or if a parent mentions that the baby was born breech, then this is a definite pose that I would attempt with that baby because it's very natural for them to have their little legs crossed over in the womb and up sort of, underneath them like that. So having already been in that position in the womb, it's going to be a lot easier for you to sort of pose them naturally and comfortably into this position. So when I start out with my posing bag, this is the only pose that I'll do where I'll start with some supports underneath the blankets. So I've got my well in the middle of my bag here. If I peel back the blankets, you can see how the beans kind of dip down there in the center. I'm going to grab, I think I've got, 3 of these cloth nappies. You can use little cushions or posing pillows, anything like that. But I want to create a shelf that the baby's head is going to rest on. So it's going to be more upright than the baby's bottom. So I'm just putting it on a bit of an angle there. I can reposition that if I need to. So bringing those blankets back. Now you can see my well here in the middle, and then I've got that support where those towels are. Okay, so I've got my light source. If we have a look at our baby, I've got my light coming in from the side here, and then my shadows over here. What I want to do is position my baby on a 45-degree angle towards my light source. So that would be in that direction. So then when I lay the baby down, the light is going to fall beautifully across its face. But before we do that, what I like to use when I'm doing this pose are bits of fabric that I can wrap around the outside of the baby. It's going to be tucked in around her and she's going to feel nice and secure throughout this pose, just having that little bit of extra support surrounding them, and it's going to make them feel nice and warm as well. Okay, so when I do get the baby into position, I'm going to do that first in my hands. So I bring the baby's bottom back onto my thigh like this. I then transition the head over onto the palm of my hand and I wrap my fingers around the back of the head. This is going to prevent the baby from pulling back because it's only got 2 points of contact. So I want that baby to stay nice and secure in my hand. I'm then going to bring the hand up in front of the baby's face. So that way when I move the baby, it's not going to get caught down and around its legs. The hand is up, positioned there, so it's out of the way, ready for me to slide up underneath the cheek when the baby's on the posing bag. This hand can stay down here, or you can link those fingers up onto one of your fingers if you need to keep that hand out of the way, but you're still supporting the back of that head, and the baby's head is resting gently in your palm. Now with the legs, what I like to do here is position them, crossing them over, and you can bring the top foot over the bottom foot, or you can bring the bottom foot over. When you bring the bottom foot over, it's going to sit in front of that foot and you're going to see a lot of the base of that foot. So what I like to do, so you can see more detail, is bring the top foot over and then you can curl those 10 toes around each other when I'm positioning them. So if we were to position the baby on the posing bag, what I'm going to do is get the baby's bottom and feet positioned like this in my hand. I'm going to come down onto my posing bag, facing the baby at a 45-degree angle towards that light source, and I'm sitting the baby down and I'm leaning it forward and allowing that bottom to kind of really stick out at the back there. And I'm right up close to those cloth nappies underneath the blankets there. Now before I start to lay the baby down, and I've still got that support at the back of the baby's head, if I need to, I can kind of just position those feet a little more forward and tuck them in. Now what I need to do is lay the baby down. So instead of laying the baby directly forward onto the feet, I'm going to lay the baby just gently off to the side and on top of those cloth nappies there. So just making sure that that back hand is tucked in nice and comfortably there at the back as you come down. Then switching hands out, cupping the baby's head so it's nice and supported there. You can bring that hand up underneath that cheek. Now that you've got it into position and you can see the little hands and feet under there, you can start to kind of adjust your props underneath and position the baby a little more. Now our fake baby doesn't have joints, doesn't have ligaments, doesn't have muscles or anything like that, so she's not going to stay in position here because of obviously the material that she's made from. But we'll go ahead and I'll show you how I wrap that support around the baby. What you'll also notice is with our fake baby, she's got a very straight spine. In this pose, you want that spine to be beautiful and curved. So much so that if it was me in this position and my legs were crossed over, I'd be leaning forward like this and I'd have that beautiful round curve of my back coming forward onto my legs. So I'll bring that little hand back up underneath her face there. Obviously, depending on the flexibility of the baby will depend on whether or not you can come all the way down with that hand towards the feet, or the fact that you might need to actually come forward and have those feet tucked up behind that elbow there like that. So that will depend purely on your baby and how comfortable they are in this position. So let's just bring that hand back there. So when I'm using the wrap, I'm going to tuck it over the top of the baby, bring it down around the bottom, and tuck it around the top of the head here as well. So it's not under the baby, but it's just over the top, tucked in, and then at the back, I can tuck it in as well, and that's going to give that little bit of extra support. Now, if you need to, you can use additional cloth nappies to kind of raise the leg or the bottom, or even to turn the face up towards the ceiling. But in terms of positioning, this is exactly what I'm looking for, that 45-degree angle towards the light. I can see here that the light's falling gently across the baby's face. We're not creating any unwanted shadows. If you do find that the baby's face is too far away from the light, we can just simply turn the bag a little more towards that light source to get that perfect angle that we're going for. Adjusting your towels under here is what's going to bring the baby's face up towards the ceiling so we can see more of it. So I'm just going in at the front with a flat towel there and holding the blankets. You can just slide that under the feet and the hand there, curling it over where you need to. And then you can get that angle coming down on the baby. Those little feet. So yeah, posing a fake baby and a real baby is very different, but just understanding the setup and in terms of lighting and things like that, it's a great way to really practice your exposures, your camera angles, and so on. When I am shooting this and I've got my camera in hand, I'm going to come from above to get a nice little close-up. I love seeing those little toes poke out underneath that forearm. And I'm going to come from in front of the baby over here, in line with the baby's face. The baby's going to be in the bottom half of the frame, and that backdrop is going to be in the top half of the frame. And I'm going to rotate, get rid of those wrinkles. Now her face won't stay up, unfortunately, but if the baby's face was up, you would rotate the frame to either elevate them more inside the frame, or you can go flat and it makes them look like they're lying on a flat surface. So depending on the look that you're going for, that's how you would shoot that. I would shoot that at 2.8 focusing on the top eye that's closest to the camera, and then I would just adjust my exposure depending on the color of the backdrop. If it was a light, this is a very mid-tone color, so I'm probably going to be very center weight metered there. But if this was a light color, I'd be slightly overexposed, a third of a stop overexposed when reading my meter in terms of shutter speed. And if it was a dark backdrop, then I'd be maybe a third of a stop to 2/3 of a stop underexposed, depending on how my camera is reading that information. So depending on the color of your backdrop will make a huge impression on your actual exposure. But yeah, that's pretty much how I set up the taco pose. But remember that if your baby is showing any signs of resistance, has got stiff arms, jerky movements, is crying, upset and moving a lot, then they're not comfortable in that pose, and it's definitely not worth forcing them further into it to make them upset, because you know, it could sort of make or break your session really, and the baby might not settle again after that. So yeah,